Have you ever felt overwhelmed by life's challenges? Like you're stuck in a storm, unsure of where to turn or what's next? Maybe you've asked yourself, why is this happening to me? What's the purpose of all this struggle? Let me tell you something you need to hear today. You are not alone. You are not here by accident. Every moment, every breath you take is part of a bigger, divine design. God has a plan for you. And it's not just any plan. It's a plan for good. A plan to give you hope and a future. Now, I know it's hard to believe when life feels heavy. When doors close, when setbacks pile up, or when it feels like you're running out of time. But here's the truth. God hasn't forgotten you. He sees your pain. He hears your prayers. And He's already working behind the scenes on something greater than you can imagine. So, why are you here today? Why this video? Maybe, just maybe, it's because God is sending you a message. A reminder that He's still with you, that your story isn't over, and that breakthrough, the miracle you've been waiting for, is closer than you think. Stay with me, because in the next few moments, we're going to explore how you can stop worrying, start trusting, and walk boldly into the incredible plan God has for your life. Take a deep breath. This is your moment. A moment to let go of fear, to open your heart, and to embrace the beautiful truth that God has something extraordinary in store for you. Are you ready? Let's begin. Now that you're here, let's start with one of the most important truths you need to know. You are chosen. God didn't place you here by accident. Let me show you what that means for your life. Do you realize how unique and extraordinary you are? Take a moment to think about it. Out of all the infinite possibilities, God chose you. He chose you to exist right here, right now, in this moment in time. That's not an accident. That's not random. Your existence is part of something far greater, a divine plan, uniquely designed by the Creator of the universe. In Jeremiah 1:5, God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Think about the depth of that statement. God knew you before the world even met you. He doesn't just know your name. He knows every detail about you. Your thoughts, your dreams, your struggles, and your strengths. He crafted you with intention. You're not here to simply drift through life. You are here on purpose, for a purpose. But here's the key. You have to believe it. You have to believe that God's plan for your life is real, even if you can't see it yet. For so many of us, doubt creeps in. We start to wonder, why would God choose me? I'm not good enough. I've made too many mistakes. But here's the truth. God doesn't call the perfect. He perfects the called. Throughout the Bible, we see this again and again. Moses told God he wasn't a good speaker. Jeremiah thought he was too young. Sarah laughed at the thought of having a child in her old age. But God doesn't look at your limitations. He looks at your potential. In Ephesians 2:10, the Bible says, "For we are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Let that sink in for a moment. You are His masterpiece. You are not defined by your past, your failures, or what others think of you. You are defined by the one who created you. Your life is not a mistake, no matter what the world may try to tell you. Your personality, your talents, your experiences, they're all part of a divine design, perfectly equipped for the role God has for you. It's time to let go of the lies that say you're not enough. Replace those thoughts with this truth. You are chosen. You are seen. You are deeply loved by the Creator of all things. When you start to see yourself as God sees you, everything changes. Suddenly, the doubts begin to fade. The fear of failure loses its grip, and you begin to step into the fullness of who you were created to be. So, take the first step today. Believe that you are chosen. Believe that you are not here by accident. And trust that God's plan for your life is far greater than you could ever imagine. If you hold on to this truth, you'll begin to see doors open that you never knew existed. And you'll discover that your life isn't just ordinary, it's extraordinary, because it's part of God's plan. Once you begin to believe that you're chosen, the next step is learning how to hear God's voice. He's always speaking, but are you listening? Let's talk about how to recognize His whispers in your life. Have you ever felt like you were searching for answers, but all you could hear was silence? Maybe you've been waiting for some big, unmistakable sign from God, a burning bush, a loud voice, a miracle so obvious that you can't miss it. But here's the thing about God. He rarely shouts. He often speaks in whispers, in gentle nudges, in the quiet moments when we pause and truly listen. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." It's in the stillness that we hear Him most clearly. But let's be honest, being still isn't easy. Our lives are noisy. From the moment we wake up, we're bombarded by notifications, schedules, and responsibilities. We're constantly running, constantly doing. And in all that noise, it's easy to miss the quiet voice of God. Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to hear Him? It's not because He isn't speaking, it's because we're not listening. God is always speaking to us, but His voice isn't always loud or dramatic. It might come as a sudden thought or an idea that keeps coming back to you. It might be a feeling of peace when you're making a decision, or the encouragement of a friend at just the right moment. These aren't coincidences. They're clues. They're God's whispers, guiding you toward the path He has for you. So how do you start hearing His voice more clearly? The first step is to make space for Him. Set aside time every day to quiet your mind and focus on Him. You can call it prayer, meditation, or reflection. What matters is that you create a space where you can be still. Start with just a few minutes. In that time, ask God, "What do you want me to hear today?" And then, simply listen. At first, it might feel awkward. You might not hear anything right away. But over time, as you practice being still, you'll begin to notice the whispers. You'll start to see patterns in your life, the little coincidences that are actually God's way of nudging you in the right direction. Pay attention to what lights you up, the things that make you feel alive and energized. These are often signs of where God is calling you. At the same time, notice the things that drain you or make you feel uneasy. These might be signs that you're moving away from the path He's prepared for you. The more you tune in to these signals, the more clearly you'll hear His voice. And here's the beautiful part. As you start to follow His whispers, you'll see your life begin to flow. Doors will open that you didn't even know existed. You'll meet the right people, encounter the right opportunities, and find yourself exactly where you're meant to be. But don't forget, this process takes time. It takes patience, persistence, and trust. Sometimes, God's whispers will lead you into unfamiliar or even uncomfortable territory. But those moments of uncertainty are where growth happens. So don't be afraid to step out in faith, even if you can't see the whole picture. God's whispers are leading you toward a life of purpose, a life filled with meaning and joy. Trust Him, listen for Him, and you'll be amazed at what unfolds. It's one thing to hear God's voice, but what happens when life doesn't go the way you planned? How do you trust God when you're in the middle of a storm? That's what we're going to tackle next. Let's be honest, none of us like facing challenges. When the storms of life come, our first instinct is often to run, to ask, "Why me?" or to beg God to take the storm away. But here's a truth that may surprise you. The storms you're facing right now might be part of God's plan. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." Pure joy? When life feels like it's falling apart? It sounds impossible. But the Bible isn't telling us to be happy about the pain. It's showing us that there's purpose in the pain. Think about it like this. When a sculptor works on a masterpiece, the process involves chiseling away pieces of stone. It's not gentle. It's not easy. But every strike of the chisel brings the sculpture closer to its intended form. That's what God is doing in your life. He's using the storms, the challenges, and the setbacks to shape you into the person He created you to be. But I know it doesn't feel that way when you're in the middle of it. Maybe you're asking, "Why is this happening to me? Why now? Why does it feel like everything is falling apart?" The truth is, some of God's greatest work happens in the storms. Look at the story of the disciples in Matthew 8. They were caught in a terrible storm while Jesus slept in the boat. They were terrified, convinced they were going to die. But when they woke Jesus, He didn't panic. He simply said, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Then He calmed the storm with just His words. The lesson? Even when it feels like the storm is too much to bear, God is in the boat with you. He hasn't abandoned you. He's right there, using the storm to grow your faith and prepare you for something greater. Here's something else to consider. Often, the biggest storms come just before the biggest breakthroughs. Have you ever noticed that before a seed can grow into a tree, it has to be buried in the dark soil? Before a diamond can shine, it must endure intense pressure. And before you can step into your purpose, you may have to walk through a season of struggle. God isn't punishing you with the storms. He's preparing you. So how do you embrace the storms? First, remember this. God is bigger than your storm. He's not surprised by what you're going through. He sees the big picture, even when you can't. Second, shift your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" start asking, "What is God teaching me through this?" Maybe He's teaching you patience. Maybe He's strengthening your character. Maybe He's positioning you for a blessing that you're not ready for yet. Finally, don't give up. It's tempting to quit when things get hard, but the Bible reminds us in Galatians 6:9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." The storm won't last forever, and when it passes, you'll look back and see how it shaped you, how it prepared you, and how it brought you closer to God. So, if you're in a storm today, take heart. God hasn't forgotten you. He's right there with you, guiding you through it. Trust Him, even when the skies are dark, because after the storm, there's always a sunrise. Storms can leave us feeling scared and uncertain. But did you know that fear is one of the biggest obstacles to living out your purpose? Let's talk about how to overcome fear and replace it with unshakable faith. Fear. It's something we all face, isn't it? Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of not being good enough. These fears can feel overwhelming, like chains holding us back from living the life God intended for us. But here's the truth: fear is not from God. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." Fear is a liar. It whispers doubts into your mind, telling you, "You can't do this. You're not enough. What if you fail?" But those whispers don't come from God. They're distractions meant to keep you stuck, to stop you from stepping into your purpose. So, how do we overcome fear? First, you have to recognize it for what it is: an illusion. Fear often stands for false evidence appearing real. Think about it. How many times have you worried about something that never actually happened? Fear magnifies the worst-case scenario, but faith shifts your focus to what God can do. Here's a powerful truth to hold on to. Faith is greater than fear. When fear tells you to stop, faith tells you to keep going. When fear says, "You can't," faith says, "God can." In Isaiah 41:10, God promises, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Think about that. The same God who created the heavens and the earth, the God who holds the universe in His hands, is holding you. He is walking with you through every challenge, every trial, and every fear. But here's the thing: overcoming fear requires a choice. You have to choose faith over fear. You have to make a conscious decision to trust God, even when you can't see the whole picture. It's not about pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about acknowledging it, then stepping forward anyway, trusting that God is in control. Imagine Peter stepping out of the boat to walk on water toward Jesus. The waves were crashing around him, the wind was howling, and fear could have paralyzed him. But Peter chose faith. He fixed his eyes on Jesus and stepped into the impossible. You can do the same. When fear creeps in, pause and pray. Say, "God, I'm scared, but I trust you. I know you're with me, and I know you have a plan." And then take the next step. Even if it's small, even if it feels uncertain, move forward in faith. Remember this: God didn't create you to live a life controlled by fear. He created you to live boldly, to step into your purpose, and to trust Him every step of the way. So, the next time fear tries to stop you, choose faith. Choose to believe that God's promises are true, because when you replace fear with faith, you unlock the courage to become the person God created you to be. When you let go of fear and step out in faith, something amazing happens. You start to see how your gifts can bless others. Let's explore how serving others is the key to discovering your purpose. Have you ever wondered why God gave you the talents, passions, and experiences that make you unique? They aren't random. They aren't just for your benefit either. God designed you with a purpose, and that purpose is always tied to serving others. 1 Peter 4:10 says, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." Your gifts, whether they're big or small, whether they're obvious or hidden, are meant to make a difference in the lives of those around you. But here's the challenge. So often, we undervalue our gifts. We think, "What can I possibly do? I'm not talented enough. I'm not special enough." Let me stop you right there. The Bible is filled with examples of ordinary people who made an extraordinary impact because they were willing to use what they had. Think about the boy who brought 5 loaves and 2 fish to Jesus. It wasn't much, but he gave it anyway. And in the hands of Jesus, that small offering fed thousands. Your gifts might feel small to you, but in God's hands, they can have a ripple effect far beyond anything you could imagine. Here's what I want you to do. Take a moment to think about the things that make you come alive. What are you passionate about? What are the things you do that bring you joy or make you feel fulfilled? Those are clues to the gifts God has placed inside you. Maybe you're a great listener and people feel comfortable opening up to you. Maybe you're creative and can use art or music to inspire others. Maybe you've been through struggles that have given you wisdom to help someone else who's going through the same thing. Whatever your gifts are, they matter. And when you use them to serve others, you're not just making a difference. You're living out your purpose. But let's go even deeper. When you serve others, you reflect God's love. You become a living example of His grace, His kindness, and His compassion. Jesus said in Matthew 5:16, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Your light, the unique gifts God has given you, is meant to shine. When you use your gifts, you inspire others to do the same. You create a ripple effect of positivity, purpose, and love that reaches far beyond what you can see. Now, you might be thinking, "But what if I fail? What if I try to help and it doesn't make a difference?" Let me remind you of this. The results aren't up to you. Your job is to show up, to be faithful, and to give your best. God will take care of the rest. When you serve others with an open heart, you're planting seeds. You might not see the harvest right away, but trust that God is working behind the scenes. So, here's your challenge. Look around you. Who can you help today? How can you use your gifts, even in small ways, to brighten someone else's life? It doesn't have to be big or grand. Sometimes, it's as simple as offering a kind word, lending a helping hand, or listening to someone who needs to be heard. Because when you serve others, you're not just fulfilling your purpose. You're living out the greatest commandment, to love God and to love others. Remember, your gifts are not meant to stay hidden. They were given to you for a reason, to bless others, to glorify God, and to make a lasting impact on the world. So, Step out in faith. Use what you have. And watch how God takes your small acts of service and turns them into something extraordinary. Now you've seen how each piece fits together, believing you're chosen, hearing God's whispers, trusting Him in the storms, overcoming fear, and serving others. The question is, what will you do next? Let's wrap this up with one final challenge. You've heard it all today. You've been reminded that you are chosen, that God is whispering His plans to you, that the storms you face are shaping you, that faith is greater than fear, and that your gifts are meant to bless others. Now it's time to take the next step. What will you do with what you've heard? God's plan for your life isn't something you have to figure out all at once. It's a journey, one small step of faith at a time. Maybe today, that step looks like spending a few quiet moments in prayer, asking God to reveal His purpose for you. Maybe it's reaching out to someone in need, using your gifts to serve. Or maybe it's simply choosing to trust God, even when the path ahead isn't clear. Whatever it is, don't wait. The time to act is now. You are not alone on this journey. The same God who created the stars, who calmed the seas, and who raised the dead, is walking with you every step of the way. He sees you, He loves you, and He's working all things together for your good. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So, no matter what you're facing today, hold on to that promise. God's plan for your life is greater than anything you can imagine. And if you stay faithful, He will lead you to blessings and miracles beyond your wildest dreams. Here's my challenge to you. Start today. Let go of the worries, the fears, and the doubts that have been holding you back. Instead, choose faith. Choose hope. Choose to believe that you are here for a reason and that God's plan for your life is good. And if this message has touched your heart, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. You never know who might need a reminder of God's love and purpose. Remember, you are chosen, you are loved, and God is with you every step of the way. Keep moving forward in faith. Your miracle is closer than you think. Let's walk this journey together, trusting that God will make a way.